So now that we're here, all right. Hello, everybody.
Yes.
Saira and Minessa here. I was about to say Saira and Minessa Valley, which Saira and I, that's actually not the first time that that's happened where we've done that, where, we've called it Saira and Minessa Valley. But so we haven't been live in a long time. And
I
the,
know.
the thing for us is when we're kind of get out of routine, it becomes tough for us to sort of like get going.
True
But like
story.
once we get going, we're fine. But if we sit and try to plan and plan and plan and plan and plan,
Yeah.
we never get started. And so when we were at NCURA Region 1, we were talking, we have so much fun. And we were like, we need to go live. And so we're like, we'll plan this and we'll do this thing. And literally we could tell what was happening. We were just getting caught up in our own planning. So
Yes.
I said, listen, we decided we're going to come up with 5 topics, 5 dates, schedule them, and then just figure it out as we went. So that's sort of where we're at right now. But I'm curious, sister, because, as I'm sharing this information, I'm going to grab a Kleenex while you're talking. Do you feel like that's like a really good life idea? Like I do feel like I feel like as I was saying this, I'm like, actually, this is just a really good way to approach things in general instead of waiting for perfection.
Like Spaceballs, right? Why are we
Why
always
are we always
preparing?
preparing? Why just go?
Waited like 40 years for a sequel to Spaceballs. So, I'm very excited for that. But yes, I actually have been practicing this mindset globally, I would say, in my life, as you and I have discussed many times, that I'm just tired of always preparing to do the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
I will do X when I do Y, right? And I was finally like, you know what? I don't have to have my decision making dependent on, you know, another fact. I can just do the thing, right? Like, why do I have to think so much? Just do the thing.
Right.
And I will say, like, prime example, I've owned many treadmills over the years, and many of them have ended up donated or gifted or sold or whatever. And I finally was like, you know what? I'm committing to this. And I bought myself a treadmill, and the day it got set up, I was on it. And I set it up so that I basically walk on it every time I eat. I get on the treadmill and I walk. And what I found is by creating these small challenges for myself that are very achievable. So I'm not saying I'm going to walk for 2 hours a day. I'm saying I'm just going to walk for 30 minutes, 30 minutes. Then the next 30 minutes becomes all the easier. And then the next 30 minutes is easier because I've already done 60. So what's another 30, right? And then before I know it, I'm walking 2 hours, at night, first thing in the morning, and I'm seeing progress. But if I kept waiting for I want to wait for the nice weather so I can walk outside, or I want to wait until I have 2 hours that I can walk in a row, I was creating all of these barriers for myself to experience life the way I wanted and to be successful at whatever it is I wanted to be successful at. So yes, I think a long-winded answer to your question is I agree. I think that sometimes the best thing is to stop planning and just be scared, but do it anyway.
I think it's also like, so going, trying to, there's so many problems I've been trying to solve for myself. Like Saira and I have been talking a lot about the parallels of like, in addition to being research administrators, we're also human beings, right? So we have to exist as
We are?
I know, shocking. But we have to exist in human beings in our life, right? With kids and parents and dogs and, just life. And also
Responsibility
like
and
the truth is like not all the things in life are also responsibilities. Some things are things we just want to do, like pleasure, fun, joy, entertainment, like
exactly.
community. So, and for me, I struggle on blank slate. And so for me, going into the NCURA conference, well, the big thing for me this year was really listening to like everybody's experiences in terms of just where are they at right now. Because I feel like we're all so isolated, we're lonely, it's
Yeah.
so many changes, and we talk about it constantly, which is what, we'll talk about the keynote in a bit, but just keeping up with it feels isolating. And overall as human beings, like there's a trend in that direction of just generally we are not connecting as much as we used to, and we are getting depressed because of it. And it's like, how do you, but like, and I think COVID really did it, because COVID put us in like a, we got so used to being on our own. How do you,
Yes.
how do you then, come out and begin to behave like a human? And that I mean somebody who's not living in like a den, like I got stuck.
Socialize.
I don't leave the house,
Socialize.
right?
Yeah.
Social, like somebody who's able to go outside or just, and for me, like you said, it's these little steps. And NCURA Region 1 is actually a really great place for me, because I struggle with, like, I'm not the sort of person who's going to go to some random event and hang out and like make friends. Some people can do that,
Yeah.
but that is so not me. I love research administration. I only want to talk about research administration. I love, like, that's just my life. Like, so for me, my friends, they're all going to be research administrators. So I find that the regional meetings are so incredibly powerful because they kind of help you to break apart some of those, at least in region one specifically, I think is unique to us because we are so geographically
Yeah.
tight that like I can go to a region one meeting and make a friend that I can have coffee with a week later. Now, if you're living in Arizona or region six, you might have a problem because you can meet somebody in, in California and they live in Oregon, and so it's not exactly the same. But I think the region one meeting is so powerful for that very reason.
No, I agree. I think that our geography is a real advantage for us because, like, we're already so tightly knit just in
Yeah.
our geographical space. It makes it a lot easier to maintain those connections if you want that physical, like get together, have coffee, meet for lunch, or what have you. I also think that the huge advantage of NCURA meetings, for me anyway, is that you have an instant common like ground to kind of connect with new people because you all share in like something, right? There's something everybody has in common. And I think all of those types of events, if you go to a supernatural convention, which I'm going to, which I'm very excited about, or you go to a Star Trek cruise, which like
Which I
you've
go
done.
to, and if you love those, like you know that you have a built-in thing to talk about.
Exactly. You have a built-in conversation starter and a way to kind of foster those connections. And I remember I took a break from NCURA. I hadn't gone in a long time. And I can't remember why it was. I think Stacy had suggested I attend a meeting, or I don't remember what prompted it. But a couple of years ago, we went to the one in Portland or Portsmouth. I can't remember which one. But I felt kind of like when I first got there, like I didn't know anybody and I was a little out of place and like I was so insecure. And I'm a very outgoing person. I like to think of myself as a very outgoing person, but I think actually I get very shy in social settings.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to, make a fool of myself? Like, whatever it might be. Like, I just have all those insecurities. But I felt so welcomed. And I think that it was amazing how many people were there who like remembered me from before. Like, oh my gosh, we haven't seen you in such a long time. And I think that that was such a welcoming environment. And I really think region one specifically, and obviously I can't speak to other regions, but like I know that I've seen this in region one, is that they're so excited to welcome new members. We have like the new member coffee hour or the cocktail hour or whatever it is that we do to really welcome new people, so that you never show up to that event feeling, at least in my experience, feeling like you don't belong. I think it's really important to us as a region to make sure that people feel like at home where they are. Anyway, that's something I think that was a big barrier for me to actually go to a conference. And then once I went, going back to just do the thing, once I went, it was very apparent to me that I didn't need to be so worried about it. Like I had created this whole story in my mind of this, how scary it was going to be and how I was going to be the only one sitting at the table with no friends, like this whole story was just fake in my mind. And when I showed up, it was amazing. So I think that for anyone who might be actually kind of going through what Minessa talked about, which is that post-COVID world isolation, this is a great way if you're in region one. Even if you're not in region one, I'm sure that all the regions are like this, break
Challenge,
out.
I think,
And
with the other regions is the geographics, right?
yeah,
It's just that's really the big problem. And here's the thing though, like what I want to say about each region is I'm not a member of those regions, so I don't know what their unique selling point is or what their unique specific thing is, right? And
sorry to interrupt. I just got a message from Stacy saying, are you doing your LinkedIn? I'm waiting to be let in. Yeah, she's saying she can't get into the live.
send her the link and see if she can see it there.
We are live on LinkedIn. Here
There's
is,
no place to be let in as far as I'm aware.
nor am I, but you posted a link, so I'm going to paste it and we'll see what happens.
Maybe I posted the wrong link. It would not be unheard of for me.
Oh, you are there. Hello. Oh, she is here. Okay, she's here now. So I
Yeah,
guess the
hi,
message.
Stacy.
How do we
We were
see
just
you
talking
when
about you
people?
actually.
I know we were. How do we see who's here?
You'll have to actually go into the LinkedIn post and like, yeah, like
Oh,
you'll have
okay.
to go into it and see. Like, it's not really. This is we didn't like we're still figuring this out. So like
Yeah,
this
we're
is
figuring out the thing. That's
technical
okay.
technical difficulties. But I think that's really the important thing about the regional meetings, right? So it's like the regional meetings are like, regardless of which region you're in, figure out what your region's special gift is, right? Everyone's going to have their own thing, right? And ours is that we are geographically very tight. Like
Yeah,
all of everything is located within literally you can drive from the top of Maine down to the bottom of Connecticut in a day and then drive back, right? And so
exactly.
I mean, I don't know why you'd want to, but
It's very convenient.
you could.
Yeah.
Because I could probably do a whole circle. I'd be exhausted, but I could. But I think that like so going back to when you're starting out in research administration, one of the new research administrators that I met at the conference this year, she was so excited because she wasn't able to get funding to go to a national conference. So she wasn't going to be able
Mm,
to make it to national. But this was a quick drive and a hotel stay. Like it wasn't a big deal for like her organization, so she was able to do it. The other thing, we had a couple others that I met who were not, they weren't going, they wouldn't get the funding, but they got travel awards, and our sponsors were so. It was really interesting to me to see how important the sponsors felt about sponsoring travel awards. Like almost everyone,
yeah,
they sponsored like Torgerson Associates actually sponsored 2 travel awards.
that's
I sponsored a
awesome.
travel award. Like a bunch of people did because they really wanted to bring people in to this network specifically because of how robust it is and how great it is for learning, right? So like, when you
Yeah.
think, if you're like you mentioned earlier that if you're scared to go to like the space and even and meet people, then you're not going to want to be there. You're not going to want to ask questions. You're not going to feel comfortable like going into a room. And I remember my first NCURA was terrifying. But I mean, obviously, because you create the stories, we all think we're going to be those kids, right? That nobody wants to talk to, or that are going to ask the stupid question or whatever. Like we carry that with us.
Yes.
It is the burden of capitalism, patriarchy, perfectionism that basically instills in us this fear, right? And so like part of I think the work that happens in this spaces is an opening of community where you can get support in a safe environment.
Yeah.
Like our keynotes, for example. So this year the keynotes. Oh, sorry, you said you want to say something.
No, no, no. Carry on. Continue.
Well, I was say the keynotes, right? So we had 3 keynote speakers. We had Leo Otterbein from BIDMC, Gil Tran from Attain, and Chris Monahan from Harvard. And all 3 of them are amazing, and they all have great
Amazing.
chemistry. And we got to hear from them about like such an optimistic view of the future and how to leverage. Right now we're such in the middle of the churn, but like what we heard at the conference was more about the churn, almost like tilling the soil for a more robust growth after, as opposed to feeling like we're just taking a bulldozer and just breaking everything down.
I think actually for me, my takeaway from that keynote was, you have Gil and you have Chris and you have Leo, and these, Leo's a PI, and then you have Chris, who's been kind of like, president of NCURA and has done so many different things in terms of jobs within research administration. And then you have
Mm-hmm.
Gil, who's been like, worked in the government, works for Attain Partners now. This is a very broad spectrum of experience over a long period of time. And I think the fact that they brought such optimism and enthusiasm, the silent semiotics of that was so reassuring, I
Yeah.
think, because you realize that they've seen and experienced so many ebbs and flows, so many tsunamis of devastation within research. Funding's great, funding's terrible. I mean, you and I remember ARA funding, like we remember the days when research funding was just coming out of everywhere. There was money from income, and now it's like the opposite, where there's this contraction. And I think for new RAs coming in who haven't seen that history, it can feel so unstable and scary. And I think having the Gills and Chris Monaghan's and Leo and Stacy and all of these amazing people who have lived through and seen so many ebbs and flows is a reminder that the industry overall is extremely resilient, and that as a community, and when I say community, I'm not just talking about research administrators, even beyond that, the PIs, the research fellows, the scientists, the pioneers, there is a huge commitment to cutting edge research in this country. And we are unrelenting in our pursuit of that. And I think that was evident in the meeting. And I think hearing from Leo was just so rewarding, because we rarely in those settings get to hear from the faculty their experience of research. Like we know our world, but we don't really necessarily see their world. So I loved that keynote because I really felt like it not only injected that level of optimism, resilience, but also a reminder that the commitment that we have as a community of individuals in research, whether it's administration or science, is really unwavering, even in the most difficult of circumstances. We will prevail. And for new people coming into this industry, I think that's really important right now, is to say, hang on, it's a job that's very worthwhile, very rewarding. And while right now is hard, there, rainbow after the storm, right? There are brighter days ahead. And I
Yeah.
think the evidence does support that.
I agree, and I think it's so easy just going into like, again, going back to the fact that we're human beings, right? We always, like, again, it's the nature of what I call the 4 horsemen. All of the
Yeah.
consumerism, capitalism, patriarchy, perfectionism, all of those things that create that have conditioned us over the years to give us these stories that come in with the imposter syndrome and so on. And it's important to highlight that, because I think that, like, when I in our as human beings, when we are in that space, right, we it's hard to look outside of it and see anything. Like, even in, like, when you're thinking about your personal life, when you're thinking about work, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's almost like when you step on a splinter, or like on a piece of glass, like,
Yeah.
it's literally the smallest piece of glass in the fucking world, but
Traffic.
it has a disproportionate impact
It
on
does.
everything else that is going on in your life right now, right? Like, suddenly nothing else matters.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing. And I think that, like, when you have, like, the last year or so where it's just constant, right? When you're in the trauma and you're constantly being bombarded with it, it's really hard to see outside of it. And I think what's really great is we're seeing so many different organizations. This popped up multiple times over the course of the few days, in all of the sessions, where multiple organizations are creating these communities of safety around the chaos outside, so
Yeah.
that if you are, if you are looking to improve your systems, your processes, your relationships, your leadership, whatever, it's being done with creating this boundary, which I think is great, because boundaries are not something that we're taught.
Yeah. The circle of safety,
Yeah. Which we
I
don't, like,
think,
we're taught not to create circles of safety. We're taught to be like, you have to, like, open up, and you want to get more and do more and open. And now we're now starting to understand the value.
yeah, no, I think that's true. I really think, like, for me, when I also started going back to conferences, what really helped me was actually presenting. And I think that's something that can really give people that sense of purpose. Like, I'm not just going to sit in the audience, I'm not just going to attend a session, but actually, like, what is something I want to talk about? What is something I'm passionate about? And there are so many things. Like, we're always looking for new speakers. We're always looking to attract new talent to come into the region, and NCURA overall, whether it's nationals or your regional conference. Talk about what you are passionate about. Like, is there something that you're really good at? Is there something that you're really excited to talk about? It can be a
Hmm.
discussion group where you just say, I want to talk with other like-minded people about artificial intelligence, right? No one's expecting you to be the expert on that topic, but it's more facilitating that discussion so that people can be engaged and learn something new, right? And I think, like, that's really important to me. Is I love teaching, I love presenting, I love collaborating with others. And so I think that that's another way to look at this, is that if you're interested in attending a meeting, but you're feeling a little bit like, well, I might be a little out of place, I don't know, I'm not really comfortable yet, submit a session idea, right? And you can always reach out to me. I don't want to volunteer my sister here, but I will.
Since
You can
when?
always
This is
reach
like
out,
the first time in our whole lives you're not volunteering me.
and you can ask us, like, hey, I had this idea, what do you think? And we can brainstorm with you. But I think that that's another really great way to get involved. Is we also offer, like, if you're not into going to a spring meeting, the Wicked Good Chats. We're always looking for speakers to come in and kind of talk about what they're experts in and what they love and what they're
Which is
passionate
on
about,
Zoom.
which is on Zoom, and it's free if you're an NCURA member. So I think for me, like, the biggest challenge I think people face, I think you kind of talked about this first, is getting to a meeting
Yeah.
because of the financial implications. But what I love about Region 1, and again, we rule, but what I love about Region 1 is you can come for a day, right? And a lot of organizations are covering, the cost of the registration. It's just like the travel and the airfare;
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
are kind of harder. But if you're in Region 1, it's not that bad to actually just hop in your car and take a ride and just come for a day to experience the networking, the conversations, the community, the relationships that I have forged within our region. I mean, these are people, like, I literally call on the weekends. These are people that I would consider my friends now. And let's face it, it's hard to make friends as an adult. It was hard enough to make friends in school when I'm surrounded by people that are, like, in the market for friends. But honestly, when you're an adult, I feel, especially if you're like me and you work a lot and you have kids and you don't really have time to go out and make plans, it's hard to make new friends. And I think that that's another thing that I really found just invaluable from these NCURA meetings, is those connections that really do last and endure well outside of just the meeting itself.
I laughed when you said AI earlier.
I saw that, I was like,
I
please don't
did.
choke.
I want to tell you why I laughed on that, because, like, and I wanted to come back to it, because yes, I agree with what you're saying. I'm totally with you, but I was like, I'm still stuck on this AI thing. I want to come back to it. And it's ironic that I'm coming back to it because of what I'm about to say, which is, I
Okay.
actually think that AI is taking up a disproportionate amount of time and space in our lives in terms of what we talk about in organizations, right? So what's super interesting is I feel like everybody is saying we need discussion groups on AI, we need symposiums on AI, we need people talking about AI. And I got to be honest, I actually don't think AI is that much, like, it's fine and it's a tool, but I think we are giving it way more of a focus than we should be, right? And like the fact that we're doing that is what's going to create not only the growth of it, but the decay of the things we're not focusing on, right?
Mm,
And so I actually, and that's I think the thing about what I'm finding in meetings. So the last 3 meetings I've been to, it's fine. I actually find it kind of frustrating, just in general, the enormous focus on AI. And I don't mean this as somebody who's saying AI doesn't exist, I want to ignore it, we don't use it, so on and so forth. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but what I am saying is I think that we are really just pouring everything, oh AI, oh AI. And the research administration is an incredibly robust, giant endeavor with an enormous amount of contextualization that AI can't even touch. And we are, and again, not everybody's doing it, but I cannot enter a room without that conversation starting. And so I would just once like to have a conference where we're not talking about AI and we're talking about things that are related to relationship building. Because, like, in the end, let's say, for example, you lose your job and now you're looking for a job.
yeah.
It's not going to be AI that hires you. It's not going to be AI that is going to support you and help you learn the thing you need to learn. In fact, let's say you meet Saira, I'm not going to pick a sister. Let's pick somebody I haven't known, I've talked to in a long time. And then I'm like, oh my God, we met at this conference and we did this. Oh my God, that's great. We talk. And this has happened to not me because I'm a consultant, but to many of my friends who looking for jobs will connect with someone, or I'll connect them to someone, or someone else will. And
Hmm.
the community and the network grows. Either it's for a job, it's for a resource, like, oh, hey, I'm doing T32s. Do you know anybody? Jen Sabag is her person. Go, she'll be able to help.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. But you can you can AI it, that same thing, and AI will lie, and you'll have to do a whole lot of work to
Yeah.
I actually, and so that for me, I think is actually a really important thing. Is I would really like to see conferences going back to conversations about our operationalization of our work instead of a
Yeah.
disproportionate
Yes.
attention being paid to.
Like, I think it makes sense though that people are gravitating towards those things because we gravitate to what we don't understand and what makes us feel unsafe.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that people feel like they don't know what to do with it, and so it's like, what am I allowed to do, what's safe to do? And I think that one of the things, like, if I could literally do a session on AI and it would be finished in one sentence, right?
what is it?
Trust but verify.
It's just to verify.
Right. And I think that the key really is like, it's sort of like, in the 80s, you would have to go to the library. There was no internet, right? Not, at least
Britannica,
not for us.
Encyclopedia Britannica.
Encyclopedia Britannica. And you would have to go and you would have to pull the encyclopedia. But here's the thing, how up to date was that encyclopedia? Right? If your library had an encyclopedia from 10 years ago, a lot of that information, Pluto could have not been a planet at the time and then was rehired as a planet since then, right? But you may be operating on outdated information because Pluto, in the version that's in your library, was fired, right? And then, but in the current version, Pluto's been rehired, but it hasn't like percolated through all the systems yet. So I think that we as a society have to really understand that technology is exactly what you said. It is just a tool, right? And it's a really great tool that I think can really help us be much faster at getting access to information, but faster at communicating, right? Instead of snail mail with a stamp,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's going through, right? Or a phone where you're booking a collect call, right? Or a phone card. You have a much faster way to get information to and from point A to point B, right? But that does not mean that that information is risk or error free. And I think that to me is the biggest danger of this whole space. And I think why people are talking about it so much is because they're scared of it. They're scared of using it wrong, of being non-compliant, of asking it a question by accident that maybe they shouldn't have asked, accidentally putting confidential information in there. So I think it's really about that fear factor of really understanding how to integrate it into day-to-day life. But I also think that the danger with AI is exactly what we talked about with the encyclopedia, that just because it's fast doesn't mean it's right. And I've tested this a couple of times, like I've asked it questions about, very specific nuanced things related to NIH grants, and I know the answer, right? And it will give you the wrong answer. And then when you press it and kind of like oh, well, what about this? And what about that? It eventually realizes it made a mistake and that it was looking in the wrong place or it referenced the wrong file. And then all of a sudden it has this epiphany that, oh,
Being malicious.
so I think that it's really the most important thing for people to really understand it from my perspective, not to go off on a tangent here about AI,
I know we
is
went
that
on, I was like, I do
there's
want
no,
to, here we are.
I know, there's no, but I actually think it's also reassuring for people to remember this. There's really no replacement for an individual. The mastery that a person brings with their contextual experience, conversations, things that don't exist in the internet, they exist in the real world amongst individuals having conversations with other individuals, right? It's that contextual knowledge that lives in our minds as a result of years and years and years of repetition and exposure and conversations and networking and communicating and different grant mechanisms, right? All those things, AI cannot replace that. And that should reassure people, because I think that our job, Gil Tran even spoke about this, is that it's just a tool. It's not a replacement. And I think that's another thing that people, they want that reassurance, that we hear it all the time on LinkedIn, right? AI is coming for your job. And I think it's important in my perspective. I feel highly confident in our very unique skill sets as a community, that AI for us is not a replacement. It is a tool to help us level up. It is not a replacement. Anyway, I'm done with my tangent.
No. What you said was super. It actually made me think of something. Like, there's a fly in here, so it's driving me insane. So I have the screens open. It's beautiful outside. I have the screens open, and we have giant bees outside, which are great, and they love me. Like, I have bees that literally just hang out, and they're like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, "This is great." It's the same bee every day. I'm like, it's really weird. Anyway, it's in the house right now. So, but there's something that we've been doing that I think is actually, we're talking about something I was thinking about related to other regions, and how and how I'm really into this hyper local idea. Like,
Yes,
I
Nancy Block is
Nancy
is
Block,
the
yeah, Nancy Block
spearheading
actually,
this.
and so I want to actually piggyback off of that. Like, she's running these wicked local, like actual local, not so wicked good chats are online. Wicked, the local thing that we're trying to do is like in person. So, and I was thinking about this related because we've been talking about geographically disparate regions versus regions that are not geographically,
Yeah, yeah,
but it suddenly occurred to me that this idea that we have, and this is what was really cool about the conference, and Nancy and I talked about this briefly. I think a lot of us did. Chris and Dee and a few others in the South Shore talked about this, because I live in the South Shore in Plymouth. Is that there's a bunch of us here that we may want to get together and do, like, we actually just thought about going out to dinner, but also, speaking of friends, but also putting together, like, not a conference, but like, here's a almost like a networking group where, like maybe 10 to 15 people show up and you just sit and hang out and do something. It's not really like nothing serious. But
yeah,
it occurs to me that, let's say we're in, Oregon, and, it may be, so now you're region 6, giant. However,
giant.
or Seattle, let's say Seattle, you're giant, but you've got like a bunch of different organizations in the Seattle area and in that area where, the local idea, so it kind of creates, and you can find those people within your region, right? So like, and you may not want to be like, maybe like, all right, well, I already know all the, like, for example, most of the organizations I've worked in are small and large enough to where there's a lot of RAs, but small enough to where I pretty much kind of get to know people over time.
Yeah, yeah,
So you may be like, all right, well, I know all these people. I'm looking for something different, right? And so you can almost create that kind of an experience. And going back to what you were saying about why that's so important is, and this is why that AI thing, I was thinking about the AI thing, right? Because like, if you're solving problems with all AI, then that's the direction you're looking in, right? But if we're sitting here having
yeah,
a conversation saying that, listen, these regional things these meetings, the kinds of relationships that you build are really important, then the next question becomes, okay, that attention, let's take it from there and put it over here.
yeah,
Say, how can I build regional spaces? So, all right, there's going to be 10 of us. We're all going to hang out at a WeWork and, talk, or we're going to go hang out. We actually did a gathering at one of my friends has a yoga studio. It's giant. It was great. And so we did like 15 people and we all hung out. It was just so nice. And we got work done and co-working options. Like, I think there's a lot of different ways in which we can engage with each other as individuals, and also then capitalize on the things that the conferences give us, which is access to information,
yes,
access to resources, knowledge, access to new jobs, to opportunities, to a different thing you may want to do, right? Because like, I think one of the things that came up at the conference this year, that comes up a few times now, it's getting more and more, is really about specializing, and what do you want to specialize in, and how do you like specializing, right? Our leadership, post award, pre award, because it's becoming apparent that you can't do it all anymore. You're not going to be
No.
a nuts RA anymore.
Well, yeah, I think that's a big change, right? Is I remember when I first started, we were kind of generalists. We could really do everything, but it's gotten so complicated. It's hard to be able to do it all and feel good about doing it all, because you're either going to be overwhelmed or you're going to always feel like you're just a little behind, right? Like like I can't keep up with all of the changes in contract law. I'm not a lawyer, so am I really the best person to be reviewing a subcontract amendment? I'm not so sure, So I think that just because things have gotten so nuanced and so complex,
Yeah.
I definitely think there is no question that having those networks of people that you can not type into AI, but you can pick up the phone and be like, hey, Jen, I'm submitting a T32 and I have some questions about those enrollment forms. Can I talk to you about it? It's just, and honestly, here's the other thing. I saw this interview with someone on LinkedIn. I wish I had written more about it, but it was Steve Jobs. What am I thinking about? It was Steve Jobs, and it was someone who interviewed him, and he said, I've never encountered a situation where someone has genuinely asked for help with something and they weren't met with the other side saying, I'd be glad to help you, right? And he said, and the whole conversation was, how do you find success? And he said, finding success is about not being afraid to ask for help when you need it, but it's also about paying it forward. If you're a person who's received help from someone, right, in your life, like someone called you and helped you, like he told the story of how he connected with the guy who owned Hewlett-Packard and asked for spare parts to build something. Like when he was in high school or elementary school, and he went to build something, and so he literally cold called this guy at Hewlett-Packard who owned the place and said, can I get these spare parts? And he said yes, and I'll give you a job and all these other things. And then that was kind of how it started. And he said it built in him this innate desire to return the favor, right?
Yeah.
To pay that forward to others. I know for me, like if someone takes the time and puts their trust in me to say, hey, Saira, can I ask you a question? Hey, Saira, can I get help with something? My first reaction is not, ugh, why are you asking me for help? My first reaction is, what can I do to serve you, right? Like I want to help you. And so I think that that's a really important thing, is we've gotten into this mindset of like, if I call somebody, it's an inconvenience,
Yeah.
I don't want to burden them.
Bother.
I don't want to bother you, so I'm not going to call you. I really think that that's something that has been a deterioration that's worked against us, that we've been programmed somehow socially that it's disruptive to connect with other people. And it isn't. People want to be helpful. People want to be available. People want to help you grow and achieve. We're just not giving them the opportunity. And I know for me, when my phone rings or I get a text message from somebody asking me for help, I am happy that someone thought that I was approachable, and that it was safe to come to me to ask. That's something that I think was a real gift from these conferences, is that I not only grew my network so that there was more people I could call, but I realized how important it was for others to feel needed and to be that resource for whatever reason, whether it's at a vendor table or it was a speaker that you go talk to after to be like, I really felt moved by what you said or really resonated with me. Those things leave an impact, and they actually, in my opinion, help make our community better and stronger and more connected. So I really think those are priceless rewards that you get from attending those meetings, whether they're the national meeting or the regional meeting. That in-person element, it will continue to add value long after the conference is over.
Yeah.
Long after.
And I'm an introvert. I'm terrified. I am an introvert. I'm autism. I'm ADHD, ADHD, fibromyalgia, chronically, like literally, I have a list of 800 things that is for many years I've used as reasons not to connect. Like I have, and I've been doing a lot of personal work and whatnot to like go through that and whatnot. But the key thing is that I think that you said we've sort of gotten conditioned to this, and I think it was purposeful, right? It's purposeful. People are busy, right? That's like, we hear that all the time. Oh, people are busy. Don't bother them, right? So we're conditioned. Mom's busy, dad's busy. We don't do that as much anymore, but we're all indoctrinated from the 80s and the 90s. And that's a whole different set of indoctrination steps than what we're seeing happening to kids right now, right? We're like, you'll spend time with your kids and talk to your kids about your feelings and that kind of thing. Dad's busy right now. Don't bother him, right? Work is really important work. So we grow up with those ideas. And I think that something that you said was so interesting, because in the last few months, I've had the opportunity to talk to an enormous number of people in various stages of sadness, anger, upsetness, whatever it is. And the fear that it always comes down to for each of them has been the fear of abandonment, the fear of not having community, the fear of not
Yeah.
belonging, the fear of all of this. And what I think is when you said that, I thought to myself, how interesting that the very productivity based world in which we live that has forced us into this side is what has also created and deepened that sense of fear, right? And so it gets
Yeah.
worse and worse and worse. And so for me, I think going to these conferences, finding a buddy is always great, right? Like, and you can find a buddy by commenting on someone's post who says that they're going. You can find a buddy by it being someone in your organization. You can find a buddy by posting about Star Trek on LinkedIn, if that's your thing, and having someone who's going respond. And that person and you now have something to talk about besides research administration. You're obsessed about Star Trek. There are so many different ways that you can find a buddy that way you don't feel like you're by yourself. Like that's Saira's my buddy, right? I find it very
And we're lucky though, because we're sisters, so we have that
but
built-in
we're not
buddy
the only
system.
other people have people that they go with. Like Stacy is Denise and Stacy. I've seen them at all the conferences for like
Yeah.
100 years, right? Not 100 years. I'm sorry, Stacy. But like everybody develops their friends and their relationships over time. You may not have somebody that day, but like there are, and you can have multiple buddies, right? You can have somebody. Okay, I'm in this room. That person is sitting here. Like, and the reason why I bring that up is because my buddy. I'm going to tell a story about a buddy. So my buddy, budget mentor, so Jeffrey.
Oh,
Oh my God, if you
he's
don't
so
know
sweet.
Jeffrey, budget mentor, he's amazing. He's my buddy because I didn't know him at all. I did not know this man from Adam, and he was at the national conference in 2 years ago, and Syra was talking to someone from Attain because I think it was Gil or Mark. Mark had just come up, and you were saying hi to Mark, and a lot of people were there, and I knew all these people. It's not a big deal, but I suddenly started to get overwhelmed, like autistic overwhelm, and it has nothing to do with people. It's just sensory overwhelm. I started
Yeah.
to really, and that does not go well for me, especially back then when I didn't understand what was happening or how to deal with it or whatever. And out of the corner of my, I just started hearing someone going, "You're okay, you're okay," and it was like really quiet, like just, "Are you okay?" And like I heard the voice, and I kind of it pulled me back into, and
Mm.
guy sitting here at this table, it was his first. It was the first time, so he had the first computer, the first
Yeah.
many times now he has giant stuff. He's doing so well. But he pulled me back and I was like, how did you know to do the first thing I said was thank you. And how did you know to do because I'm like crying. How did you know to do that? Because you were gone, so you couldn't help me. How did you
Yeah.
know to do that? And he told me that, he knows people and he recognized the signs and he was like, I could tell what was happening. And now we've been
Yeah.
friends ever since, right? And so that's a buddy that I made that I mean, we don't talk all the time, but if I'm ever in a situation where I know I'm feeling away, I could just go find budget mentor and hide behind and that's the thing to think about is you really never know when somebody's going to show up and be your buddy, or you can be a buddy for somebody.
Yes, exactly. I was sitting next to Caitlin at one of the dinners. And I mean, I've known Caitlin, forever, like we've interacted at a bunch of different events. And I can't remember how it came up. She mentioned she was moving, and we talked about Salem, Massachusetts, and like the history of Salem and all this sort of stuff. Come to find out, she and I are both huge fans of the TV show Supernatural, and
That's right.
all of a sudden we were like besties, right? Because it was like all these conversations, we were like bonding over it, and it's amazing to me that you can know someone but not really know someone,
Yep.
and there's so much opportunity for those new connections. And I think for a long time, I felt like those opportunities were a part of my history. They were not in the future. All of those besties that you make, right? You know, that feeling that you have with your best friend in the whole world, right? Like Farah, I met her when I was in eighth grade. I was 13 years old and I was being tormented. I was bullied in school relentlessly, and she rescued me. She kind of just stepped in one day. She was a new student, and she was very quick
Fearless.
witted,
Farah is fearless.
fearless. She was very quick witted, and somebody said something horribly mean to me, and I was very insecure, couldn't defend myself, and she just stepped in and said, I can't remember what it was, but it was like razor sharp tongue, right? And we were like instantly friends, and that connection that I felt with her. I mean, we've been friends for over 30 years, and like now I think about it and I go, what opportunities do I have to really feel that again with someone, right? Where like you feel connected to another person and you're like, this is a nice feeling, to like have a new friendship with someone. I think we go through life when we get to a certain age, we start to think that maybe those new opportunities for new friendships and new connections are part of our history. They're not part of our future. And I think what I learned through attending these events is that's not true. That the way that we make friends may be different now in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever age you may fall into. But those relationships can still be cultivated, and they can still be incredibly meaningful, incredibly important, and uplifting, and reconnect you to your work. I think the biggest thing for me, I'm very fortunate. I love my work. I love what I do. Every day I love what I do. And so for me, that's a blessing, because I know there's a lot of people that don't feel that way about their jobs. And I just think to myself, that must be really hard to know that every day you have to dread to know that you have to do something that you don't love. But the reason I love what I do is because I'm not alone when I do it. There is an army of research administrators that I'm connected to, of friends and colleagues, and that community makes me feel passionate about my work. Aside from my why, right, which we've talked about before, but it gives me that additional pep in my step because I don't feel alone in what I do. So there's other people that share in this life experience, and that's amazing, right? So I think, I know a lot of places kind of say, and a lot of people just, I don't have time to go to a conference, I don't have money to go to a conference, I don't have the energy, my work will fall behind. Having been to so many now over the course of the last couple of years, I would say going to these events is kind of like prioritizing your health. If you don't make time for it now, right? What do the doctors always say, right? If you don't make time for your health now, you'll make time for your sickness later, right? Because you're going to go to the doctor if you're not well. But if you just do that preventative maintenance now, you may not ever need to go, right? I feel the same way about these events. One day you're going to wake up and realize you need that connection, whether it's to answer a really hard question or overcome a really difficult obstacle or find support during a layoff. You're going to need that support, and you're going to wish you had spent the time to cultivate those relationships because they add meaning to your work and to your day-to-day life. Don't wait till you need it, right? Sow those seeds now so that in 10 years, when you may need something, whatever that may be, an answer to a question, a resource, you want to hire someone and you remember there's a great person that you met that could do that job, this is the time to make those efforts. And inevitably, they always pay off. Every time I've come back from a meeting, I feel 10 times better than when I walked in. It is so worth it. Anyway.
No, me too, actually. Sorry. I was looking to see how we were going to wrap up now, just because I looked at our time and I was trying to find what our next one is. And I was like, what is our next one? What is our next one? And in case anyone was curious, our next one is actually, well, I had it up and then I went all the way to July. Our next one is, what is research administration anyways? Actually, that's a really, that's a really fun one. And, because you were just talking about what your why is and and that's why I was going to look to find it. Because I was thinking to myself that there are so many people who would be great at this job or who are already in this job who are either they just started or they're just starting to figure out what it is. So I knew somebody who started pre-award. I hate pre-award. They hate pre-award. They didn't know pre-award. They loved the other part of it. They were like, you make it sound so fun. This is boring. And I was like, well, it is boring because it's pre-award. And then someone, it was funny, the NCURA, someone on the other side was like, I love the pre-award. And I was like, you're crazy. But I think that next week, what we'll be talking about more. And so there's a couple of things we're going to do next week. First of all, make sure that you go to LinkedIn and RSVP to next week's event and say, yes, you're coming. Number two, Saira and I are going to work on our logistics on this so that next week we go live in the actual event as opposed to having to create something new. And then third, if you have questions about those kinds of things, right? If this week you're like, oh, hey, this is really fun, I want to do this again next week, but I'd like to know some things about research administration, feel free to send your questions in, because I think that it's changed so much since we started. There's not just what do we do? Who do we support? What are the things to love about it? What are the spectrums of things that you can do as an RA? But not just that, what are the spectrum of ththings you can do after you've been an RA? Because
that's right.
Or what are the things that you've done before that would lend you to, to the RA space? You're like, oh my God, this is great. Or what are the skill sets that would probably make being an RA a nightmare? For me, black and white thinking, if you have no shades of gray, you're going to hate being a research administrator.
Right?
It is really hard, but if you still want to be one, I recommend mixing the two colors together, right? But not everybody, or if you like everything to be linear, you're probably not going to like research administration. But if you like chaos, or you like juggling, or you like solving problems, right? And there's so many different ways to fall in love with this career. So I want to recommend that if you have anyone, if you're a research administrator and you have someone that you're like, ooh, I want to tell them about it, send them this way. Or if you're somebody new who's like, what am I doing?
Right. Like
Right.
I'm trying to orient myself. Yeah.
I mean,
So before we go, I do have to ask, what are you doing for your birthday? Because both Minessa and I are sisters, and both of us are celebrating our birthdays this weekend. So happy birthday, sister.
happy
What are you
birthday.
doing?
So I'll be honest, we haven't really figured it out yet. Like May has been a really big month of growth for me, and I kind of knew that it would be. It was actually like a culmination of like 2 years of a ton of work. Like I am exhausted this month.
Yeah.
Like I'm so tired. And so I've felt for the last few months that May 31st was going to be my birthday. Like it's my birthday, but it's also my birthday. You know what I'm saying? Like a new birthday. Right. And
Yes.
I want to do something, but I don't know what it is, and universe hasn't told me yet. So I'm kind of still just kind of, going with the flow on it. But I'm going to be home with, it's supposed to be sunny on Sunday, which is my birthday.
Nice.
We
Yes.
have the bees outside. I'll probably hang out with the bees. I'll hang out with, the dogs. I'll hang out with the plants. So I'll probably hang out with my
Nice.
non-human kin. What about you?
I think we're gonna go see Star Wars.
What's Star Wars? Oh, The
In
Mandalorian.
the new Mandalorian and Grogu. Yeah, I think we're gonna
Oh my
go
God, Pedro
and see it in
Pascal.
IMAX.
Oh,
Yeah, I
Pedro
think that's what we're
Pascal.
gonna do.
That sounds
And
really good.
maybe French onion soup or steak. I've been eating very clean because I've been on my health kick. I'm down
You've
10
been so
pounds, and I'm like,
healthy, sister.
I know I've been really working hard, and so like I don't know, I may treat myself to a delicious steak dinner and French onion soup.
French onion
So
soup is the best. So I'll tell you, since I started eating clam chowder, I don't eat as much French onion soup because I always want to test the clam chowder anywhere. Listen,
why don't you just eat a mouthful of the sea? Like
okay, first of all, it has a more brothy potato. It's almost like a leek soup with clam. So I get it because it has that portion of it. But I also pull all the clams out and pile them on a plate because I fucking hate clams. And so I know, I eat the potatoes, I eat the vegetables, but the clams I take out and I put on a plate and
order potato soup.
they don't have a potato soup. So I get the clam chowder because that's why I do it. All right, my battery is
Yes.
actually at
All
2%.
right.
I'm actually really impressed that it didn't die while we were talking.
I'm amazed. Yeah. All
So
right.
good to
So
see
we'll
you, sister. All
see
right, we'll see
everyone
y'all
next
in
week.
2 weeks, everyone. What?
2 weeks. 2
2
weeks.
weeks. 2 weeks,
All
everybody.
right.
Bye.
Bye.
Now let's see. Stop.